August 6, 1945, 2:45 a.m. Aboard the Enola Gay, 31,000 feet over the Pacific, en route to destiny. The B-29 Superfortress hums through the night sky, its four Wright R-3350 engines throbbing like a distant heartbeat. Colonel Paul Tibbets grips the yoke, his eyes scanning the instrument panel under the dim red glow of cockpit lights. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the chill at altitude. You can almost feel the weight of the 9,700-pound payload slung in the bomb bay, a device codenamed Little Boy, pregnant with the fury of 1,000 suns. The crew is silent, save for the crackle of radios and the occasional creak of metal. No one speaks of the target ahead, Hiroshima, a city of 350,000 souls, oblivious in the pre-dawn haze. Tibbets glances at his navigator, Captain Theodore Van Kirk, who nods grimly. The mission clock ticks. In 5 hours, the world will shatter. But to understand this moment's gravity, we must rewind to the shadowed bunkers where arrogance blinded the brilliant. Deep beneath Berlin's crumbling streets, in the fortified labyrinth of the Army Ordnance Office, Werner Heisenberg paced the concrete floor of his makeshift laboratory. It was late 1942, the air thick with the acrid scent of soldering irons and ozone from electrical experiments. Dim bulbs flickered overhead, casting long shadows on chalkboards scrawled with equations, quantum mechanics twisted toward wartime ends. Heisenberg, the Nobel laureate with his sharp features and piercing blue eyes, leaned against a workbench cluttered with Geiger counters and uranium samples. Around him gathered his elite team, Otto Hahn, the chemist whose fission discovery had ignited this nuclear chase. Carl Friedrich von Weizsäcker, the young theoretician with a philosopher's mind, and Kurt Diebner, the pragmatic engineer from the Heereswaffenamt, his uniform crisp despite the dust. They'd intercepted whispers from Allied channels, rumors of a massive project across the Atlantic, something called tube alloys by the British, funneling into American hands. An atomic bomb? Heisenberg scoffed, his voice echoing off the bunker walls. He adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses, smirking at the absurdity. Theoretical folly. The Americans chase ghosts. To split the atom on such a scale, it would require isotopes separated by the ton, uranium-235, plutonium perhaps. Factories the size of cities, hidden from our Luftwaffe? Impossible. Von Weizsäcker nodded, crossing his arms. The energy release is staggering in theory, yes, but practically? Chain reactions uncontrolled, critical mass calculations. They'd blow themselves up first. Laughter rippled through the group, a rare moment of levity in the Reich's darkening days. Diebner, ever the skeptic, pounded a fist on the table. Even if they manage enrichment, the bomb would weigh as much as a tank. How do they deliver it? With fairy dust? You can picture it. These minds, architects of the Uranverein, Germany's uranium club, dismissing the threat as Allied propaganda, a bluff to divert resources. Heisenberg's calculations were clear. His team had dabbled in reactors, heavy water from Norway's Vemork plant trickling in despite sabotage. But a weapon? We lead the race, Heisenberg declared, sketching a crude reactor diagram. The Führer demands a wonder weapon, but this atomic nonsense is a distraction. Our path is the pile, controlled fission for power, perhaps propulsion. The Allies? They're years behind. Hubris hung in the air like cigarette smoke. Reports from spies in America painted a picture of disarray. Jewish émigrés like Einstein and Fermi fleeing to the enemy. But surely their efforts were fragmented, underfunded. Let them waste billions, Hahn muttered, his face lined with fatigue. We'll end this war with V-2s and jets, not fairy tales. Yet beneath the mockery lurked unease. Heisenberg had met with Albert Speer, the armaments minister, in June 1942, briefing him on the potential.
A bomb could level a city, he admitted privately, but publicly downplayed it to avoid diverting steel and manpower from the Eastern Front. The Reich's uranium effort was shoestring, scattered labs in Heidelberg, Leipzig, Berlin, nothing like the industrial behemoth rising in secret across the ocean. Allied bombing raids intensified, shaking the bunkers, but the scientists pressed on, convinced their intellectual superiority would prevail. "What if the rumors are true?" Weizsäcker ventured one night, staring at a flickering candle. Heisenberg waved it off. "Then we'd hear the thunder, but silence proves our point." As winter gripped Europe, the team delved deeper into experiments. Uranium cubes dangled in paraffin moderators, neutrons dancing in controlled chaos. Failures mounted. A reactor in Leipzig nearly went critical, flooding the lab with radiation. "See," Diebner grumbled, "even we struggle. The Americans, amateurs." But intelligence trickled in. Massive power draws in Tennessee, ghost towns in New Mexico. Heisenberg dismissed them as hydroelectric dams or training camps. Pride blinded them. They couldn't fathom the Manhattan Project's veil, General Leslie Groves' iron grip, Oppenheimer's genius orchestrating thousands in Los Alamos. The Germans mocked what they couldn't see, their own programs stalling amid shortages and Allied advances. Spring 1943 brought Allied troops to North Africa, but in the bunkers, optimism flickered. Heisenberg lectured at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, ridiculing émigré physicists. Einstein writes letters to Roosevelt about bombs? The old man dreams. Laughter again, but hollow. Secretly, Heisenberg wondered, had they underestimated? A faint radio intercept from America. Trinity. What did that mean? A test? They laughed it off. Religious nonsense, Heisenberg quipped. But as the Enola Gay streaks toward Japan, that laughter echoes hollow. What if the folly was theirs? The flash awaits, a revelation that will shatter empires. While Heisenberg's team toasted their perceived superiority with ersatz coffee in Berlin's bunkers, a different reality unfolded under the vast skies of the American Southwest. Los Alamos, New Mexico, July 16, 1945, 5:29 a.m. The desert air hangs heavy, electric with anticipation. J. Robert Oppenheimer stands atop a control bunker at the Trinity site, his fedora pulled low against the pre-dawn chill. You can almost feel the weight of the 9,700-pound payload slung in the bomb bay, a device codenamed Little Boy, pregnant with the fury of 1,000 suns. The crew is silent, save for the crackle of radios and the occasional creak of metal. No one speaks of the target ahead, Hiroshima, a city of 350,000 souls, oblivious in the pre-dawn haze. Tibbets glances at his navigator, Captain Theodore Van Kirk, who nods grimly. The mission clock ticks. In 5 hours, the world will shatter. But to understand this moment's gravity, we must rewind to the shadowed bunkers where arrogance blinded the brilliant. December 2nd, 1942, Chicago Stadium, beneath the west stands of Stagg Field. Enrico Fermi, the Italian émigré who'd fled Mussolini, oversees the world's first controlled chain reaction. CP-1, a crude pile of graphite bricks and uranium, hums to life. Cadmium control rods slide in inch by inch. Geiger counters chatter faster, faster. Then, sustained criticality. Fission unchained, yet tamed. Champagne corks pop in the squash court below. The atomic age dawns, hidden from Axis eyes. The Manhattan Project was no folly, it was a colossus. General Leslie Groves, the bulldog engineer who'd built the Pentagon, drives it with ruthless efficiency. Billions poured in, $2 billion, more than the entire U.S. auto industry. Oak Ridge, Tennessee, a secret city of 75,000, gaseous diffusion plants sprawling like football fields, separating U-235 atom by atom.
K-25 building alone, half a mile long, humming with pumps and barriers. Hanford, Washington, reactors on the Columbia River churning out plutonium, cooled by millions of gallons of water. Los Alamos, a mountaintop fortress where theorists like Hans Bethe, Edward Teller, and Richard Feynman wrestle implosion designs, fat man versus thin man. The Germans never grasped the scale. Their spies reported factories, but not the coordination. Heisenberg's calculations assumed diffusion was impractical, yet Calutrons whirred day and night, electromagnetic separation yielding grams that became kilograms. Heavy water sabotage in Norway crippled the Reich's reactor path, but America needed no such crutch. Graphite-moderated Chicago pile, then full-scale production. Intelligence failures compounded hubris. The Alsos mission, Allied scientific hunters, shadowed German progress but fed false trails back.
August 6, 1945. Late evening. Farm Hall, Godmanchester, England. The old manor house sits quietly under a summer moon, its red brick facade hiding secrets within. Inside the drawing room, 10 of Germany's top nuclear physicists, captured months earlier by the Alsos mission, lounge in enforced idleness. Werner Heisenberg plays Beethoven on the upright piano, fingers dancing over the keys with mechanical precision. Otto Hahn chats amiably with Carl Friedrich von Weizsäcker near the fireplace. Walther Gerlach smokes in silence, staring out at the guarded gardens. Kurt Deibner paces, restless as always. They wear civilian clothes now, but the weight of defeat clings to them like the damp English air. A hidden microphone in the chandelier records every word. British intelligence listening in from a nearby cottage, transcripts typed in real time. The men have spent the evening debating the war's end, convinced the Reich collapsed under sheer Allied material superiority. If only we'd had another year, Deibner mutters, the uranium pile would have worked. Heisenberg shrugs. Perhaps. But the bomb? Still fantasy. Then, at 11 p.m., Major T.H. Rittner, their polite but firm overseer, enters the room carrying a copy of the evening newspaper. His face is unreadable. "Gentlemen," he says in clipped English, "I have something you should hear." He switches on the large valve radio. The BBC announcer's voice fills the room, calm and deliberate. "We interrupt this program for a special bulletin from Washington. President Truman has announced that an atomic bomb, a single bomb of unprecedented power, has been dropped on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The explosive force is equivalent to 20,000 tons of TNT. One bomb has destroyed an entire city." Silence. Absolute. The piano note Heisenberg had been holding fades into nothing. You can almost feel the blood drain from their faces. Hahn slumps into a chair, hands trembling. Von Weizsäcker's mouth opens, but no sound emerges. Gerlach's cigarette burns forgotten between his fingers. Heisenberg is the first to speak, voice barely above a whisper. 20,000 tons? With one bomb? He turns to the others, eyes wide. That's impossible. Did they say atomic? The announcer continues. Details of the flash, the mushroom cloud, the devastation. Rittner watches their reactions, then quietly leaves the room. The floodgates open. Hahn, the man who discovered fission in 1938, buries his face in his hands. "My God, what have we done?" His voice cracks. "If they've really done this, thousands dead, because of us." Tears stream down his cheeks. He later confesses suicidal thoughts that night, overwhelmed by guilt. Deibner explodes in disbelief. "It can't be. The critical mass. Heisenberg, your own calculations. Kilograms, not tons. How did they separate enough material?" Heisenberg stands frozen, staring at the radio as if it might take the words back. I don't understand," he stammers. "We thought it would take years. Factories the size of—" His voice trails off. The room erupts in frantic German. Von Weizsäcker, plutonium. It must be plutonium from a reactor. They built production reactors. Gerlach, and implosion? Or gun type? How do they solve the pre-detonation? They talk over each other, voices rising, shock, denial, desperate rationalization. Heisenberg paces now, running numbers aloud. If they used U-235, gaseous diffusion on that scale? Electromagnetic? We dismissed it as impractical. The hidden microphones capture it all, the unraveling of certainty. Later, transcripts reveal Heisenberg's quiet admission to Hahn in the garden. We were wrong, completely wrong. As the night deepens, the men gather in small knots, whispering. Some defend their efforts. We never wanted a bomb, Heisenberg insists. Others grapple with horror. Hahn cannot sleep. A guard finds him weeping at 3 a.m. But in the cold light of morning, a new reality settles. The war's end was not sealed by tanks rolling into Berlin, but by a single aircraft carrying the power of the atom. The weapon they mocked as folly had become the instrument of surrender. August 7, 1945. Farm Hall, early morning. The manor is unnaturally quiet. No piano, no debates, just the distant chirp of English birds and the soft footsteps of guards changing shifts. The 10 physicists move like ghosts through the hallways, faces drawn, eyes red from sleepless hours. Otto Hahn sits alone in the dining room, staring at a cold cup of tea. Werner Heisenberg joins him, pulling up a chair with deliberate slowness. Neither speaks for a long moment. You can almost feel the weight of unspoken guilt pressing down on them. Hahn breaks the silence, voice hoarse. If the Americans have done this once, they can do it again and again. He looks up at Heisenberg. We told Speer it wasn't possible before 1946 or 47. We told ourselves the same thing. We were wrong, Werner. Catastrophically wrong. Heisenberg nods almost incomprehensibly. The night before, in the privacy of their bugged bedrooms, the hidden microphones had caught more. Von Weizsäcker whispering to Horst Korsching. We always said we didn't want to build the bomb for Hitler. But now I wonder if that was just convenient. Did we simply fail? Gerlach, the most emotional of the group, had sobbed quietly. Everything is lost. Everything. Over the next days, the transcripts reveal a frantic post-mortem. They pore over every scrap of news the British allow. BBC bulletins, guarded newspaper clippings. On August 9th, the second blow lands. Nagasaki, Fat Man, plutonium, implosion design, yield even greater. Japan's surrender follows 5 days later. The physicists listen to Emperor Hirohito's broadcast in stunned silence. The war is over, not with a last stand in the Alps, not with wonder weapons from Peenemünde, but with 2 flashes in the east. As the reality sinks in, the men begin to rewrite their own history in hushed conversations. Heisenberg insists repeatedly that the German program never seriously pursued a bomb. He tells the group during a recorded discussion on August 14th, "We concentrated on the reactor. A weapon would have required resources we simply didn't have, manpower, materials, priority." Von Weizsäcker backs him. Morally, we couldn't have built it for the regime anyway. They craft a narrative of deliberate restraint, of ethical superiority. Yet the microphones catch the cracks. Deibner, more blunt, snaps back. If Speer had given us what Groves got in America, unlimited funds, highest priority, we would have had it too. The truth, pieced together later by historians, lies somewhere in the gray. Heisenberg's critical mass calculation in 1942 had been off by a factor of thousands. He estimated tons of pure U-235, not kilograms. German industry, bled dry by bombing in the Eastern Front, could never have built the gaseous diffusion cascades or electromagnetic calutrons that hummed in Tennessee. Heavy water production crippled by Norwegian resistance. Scattered labs instead of a unified Los Alamos.
And yes, perhaps a flicker of moral hesitation in some, though never enough to sabotage the effort entirely. But in those August evenings at Farm Hall, the reckoning is personal. Hahn, haunted by his role as discoverer of fission, tells Heisenberg he feels responsible for every death in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Heisenberg tries to console him. No one could have foreseen this speed. Yet his own words ring hollow even to himself. By September, the British quietly released transcripts to American intelligence. The Alsos mission confirms the German program had been years behind, crippled by miscalculation and misallocation. The mockery of 1942 had become the bitter irony of 1945. The physicists remain at Farm Hall until January 1946, then return to a shattered Germany under Allied occupation. Heisenberg rebuilds the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, renamed Max Planck, steering it firmly toward peaceful research. Hahn receives the Nobel Prize in 1944, delayed by war, for fission, but accepts it with profound ambivalence. Von Weizsäcker becomes a philosopher of science, warning of technology's double edge. The atomic age they once dismissed as folly now casts its long shadow over everything. Tanks did not end the war. Rockets did not. A single aircraft, one bomb, one decision did. And in quiet moments, each of them must have wondered, what if we had been right about the Americans and wrong about ourselves?